Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of my series where I watch through all the movies featured in Brian Raftery's book, Best Movie Year Ever, all about the movies of 1999. We are in the kind of like the high school movie chapter of the book. So this week's episode is She's All That. Basically, it's based on, I think the play is called Pygmalion, not sure how it's pronounced, and also My Fair Lady. It's a Miramax film. It's an interesting thing for Miramax because I think at the time they were kind of producing more adult oriented content, and this being a high school movie was kind of something that was just a little bit kind of like out of the blue for them, kind of like a weird thing to do. Ended up making quite a bit of money. Remember reading it was produced for like $7 million or something really cheap, and ended up making like $100 million. So definitely a good investment there. Basically, the plot of the film is that Zach, played by Freddie Prinze Jr., gets dumped by his girlfriend Taylor. She goes to like an MTV beach house kind of thing, and ends up kind of like falling for Matthew Lillard's character, who was on the MTV show The Real World. So she breaks up with Zach, and then he decides he's going to get a new girlfriend, and his friend, played by Paul Walker, basically makes him date like one of the most unpopular people in the school, and he has 6 weeks to turn that character into the prom queen, basically. So it's like a bet to see if he could basically make this person that is unpopular incredibly popular. And that's the basic plot of the film. So let's see. So Freddie Prinze Jr., stars Rachel Lee Cook, Matthew Lillard, and of course Paul Walker. Kieran Culkin was also in this movie. She plays, let's see what the character was named here. I had it written down. Like Lanny, I think. Her brother is played by Kieran Culkin, Macaulay Culkin's brother, who then, my favorite film of him is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. He plays Scott Pilgrim's roommate. Let's see what else we got here. So, yeah, Taylor breaks up with Zach. Um, Basically, the whole thing is like what happened in Florida, because the beginning of the movie, they have come back from spring break, and Taylor breaks up with Zach. But one thing I liked about this was as Taylor is recounting the entire MTV Beach House kind of thing to him, they are both in the scene where it's kind of like a flashback, but you also see Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character walking around saying like, "Well, that's all well and good, but how did this like lead up to me getting dumped by you?" Basically, so in her kind of like narrating what happened, he's kind of in the flashback as well. It's kind of like an interesting thing. They do that a little bit later in the movie too. Yeah, so there's some clever transitioning, like some nice editing here between the flashback of what happened when they were on spring break to then the week or two later when she just kind of dumps him out of the blue. What else do we have here? So we have Brock Hudson. That's the character played by Matthew Lillard, who was on The Real World. He's super annoying, pretty like full of himself. He starts going out with basically with Taylor. Um, Zach's Zach's breakup basically is played over campus radio. Usher plays the school DJ, and basically mentions that Zach got dumped by Taylor during spring break. Again, 6 weeks to basically make this one character, the prom queen. She is kind of she's an art student. She doesn't like really like the jocks that much, and stuff like that. So basically, it's a challenge for Zach to try to kind of like win her over, and then take her to the prom and make her the prom queen. She's basically an artist. She does performance art at this one gallery. She kind of he kind of goes along, watches some performance art, and does a performance art thing of his own with a hacky sack, where he basically says, don't let it drop, don't let it drop. He's hacking kicking the hacky sack ball around the stage, and eventually it drops, and he says, well, eventually it has to drop. So that's the performance art thing. What else do we have here? So after they leave the art gallery, he comments on her eyes, and she kind of like sees he's like you're just kind of going after me because you just got dumped, and like doesn't like his comment. Um, there's mention of Sega, which is kind of interesting. So one thing, Zach goes to her house to pick her up. He's talking to the younger brother, who's like, "Hey, do you want to play Sega?" And then he's like, "Yeah, we'll play Sega sometime," stuff like that. And then she comes out. She's like, "Well, I'm gonna be playing Sega all day here. If you don't go to the beach, she basically is like, well, I'll go to the beach just so you're not here hanging out with my brother, kind of thing. So they go to the beach. They're kind of like talking on their own for a while, and then Zach's friends come up. Him being like the most popular kid in school, or one of the most popular kids in school. All his friends show up, and then becomes like a big beach party with all of them. Zach is also his dad wants him to go to Dartmouth. We see he's like, hey, that letter from Dartmouth hasn't shown up yet. And he's like, yeah, give it a couple weeks, we'll see, or give it like another week, we'll see if it shows up. But it turns out that Zach is actually just collecting all the acceptance letters. He gets into like Harvard and a bunch of other like really nice schools, but he is just hiding these letters from his dad, which will play that'll come into play later on in the movie. So she gets invited to a party, but initially declines. This is like a house party kind of thing. Zach's sister, played by Anna Paquin, actually like gives her like a complete makeover, like changes her hair, gives her this nice red dress. They go to the party. It's kind of they're having a good time. And then Taylor shows up wearing essentially what is the exact same dress, and Taylor confronts. I think it was like, did I write the name down? I think it was, yeah, Lainey is Sarah, Rachel Lee Cook's character. They kind of get into a fight at the party. She dumps like a drink down Lainey's dress, and they kind of like leave from there. Yeah, Mackenzie is the sister, played by Anna Paquin. So there's like a again during the makeover, the song by I think it's like Sixpence None the Richer, Richard's "Kiss Me" plays. It actually plays during the closing credits as well. Um, she has the same dress. There's another character named Misty who's an art student with Lainey, and they basically are they're all kind of jerks to her anyway. But she's in the bathroom. This Misty character is like throwing up and asks Lainey how it feels to like clean up her vomit or whatever, just kind of like demoralizing her and demeaning her even more. Um, again, they meet Taylor. The students eventually, after that, she kind of stands up to Taylor at this party, start to like her, so her popularity is rising a little bit. Um, what else here? So, and then Brock ends up breaking up with Taylor, so Brock kind of being obnoxious at this party, and their breakup, Brock and Taylor's breakup, kind of mirrors the breakup between Zach and Taylor earlier in the movie, where Taylor says something like, "You really didn't think, I would basically be following you. We would still be going out, and I would be following you to college." And she's like, "Oh, you did. That's so sweet or so cute." And then Brock breaks up with Taylor, and is like, "Oh, you really thought I was gonna go on MTV? Like it was like Road Rules or something like that. Um, Still dating you? Oh, how cute, that kind of thing." So she gets dumped. Um, was it so? And then Zach and Dean. Dean is the friend played by Paul Walker, the guy who kind of got him into the entire thing to start. They have a falling out. They have like a fight, and then Zach almost kisses Lainey but doesn't, and then eventually Paul Walker's character starts having a thing for Lainey as well. I think this is maybe he was actually starting to fall for her, or maybe it was just a thing to kind of get back at Zach, because the film I think was pretty predictable in some of the things that it did. Like they make this bet, that the Rachel Lee Cook's character is going to eventually find out about this bet. There's going to be a falling out between her and Zach, and then like a reconciliation like toward the end, which is exactly kind of what happens. But Paul Walker's character basically asks Laney to take a prom instead. What is this? So there's also another scene where Simon is Laney's sister, played by Kieran Culkin. He's getting bullied at school, and Zach stands up for him. This is this is before the whole thing happens where there's the falling out between her and Zach. But Dean also tells Laney that he still has a thing for Taylor, which I don't think was true. I mean, there's probably some like there because she dumped him basically like while she was on vacation. Um, Zach's dad finds all the college letters, and eventually basically is just like, well, you need to make a decision on this kind of stuff. And his Zach was basically saying how basically he wants or he thinks his dad wants him to go to this one school because he went to that one school and so on. He mentions there's a photo of him getting like a piggyback ride from his dad, being on his dad's shoulders, and and Zach as a kid is wearing a Dartmouth shirt, and that's where Zach's dad wants him to go to school, or at least one of the potential schools, because he was accepted to quite a few of these really nice schools. Basically, then Laney's dad, but Laney doesn't want to go to her prom, but Laney's dad is like, you know what, like you help me out around here. Basically, just like you should probably just you're you're really mature. You're helping me out. You're helping this family out because your mom's gone. Like that's one thing. One plot point is Lainey and Simon's mother had like passed away like prior to the film, but Lainey's dad basically tells her to go to prom. She ends up going with supposed to be going with Dean. She shows up, and then eventually they do the what's it? The prom king and queen. Prom king Zach is prom queen, and in a very close vote, Taylor is the prom queen. But Zach at this point is more interested in Lainey than Taylor. Um, there's another scene where basically Paul Walker's character is bragging that he paid like $300 for a hotel room that he was going to try to bring Lainey to. Lainey deafens him with like an air horn, and then so technically Zach loses the bet. Eventually, he goes to Lainey's house, and they kind of just like dance like out like near a pool. Lainey's dad is like a pool man, like a pool like repairs, cleanups, that kind of thing. Um, they plug in a bunch of lights, so all these lights are not, so it's like nice little kind of like romantic scene. And then Zach honors the bet, and the bet was that he would basically have to graduate naked. So you see him. Another kind of funny moment was when Dean gets called up to the stage to get his diploma. You just see Paul Walker sitting there because Laney had used the air horn on him earlier in the movie. It's an off-scene kind of thing, and he can't really. His hearing is kind of at least temporarily like impaired. So the principal or whoever's doing the announcing is like Dean Sampson, and the person next to him is like, hey, you're go up to the stage and get your thing. We see Zach in the stage with just like a sash around his shoulders, and he's holding a soccer ball. He gets up to the stage, and you see him throw the soccer ball at Laney, so he basically graduates naked. And then it goes to the credits where we get the "Kiss Me" by Sixpence None the Richer again. So this film was just all right. I think if I were to rate it, I think I gave it like a on Letterboxd. I gave it like a 3 out of 5. It was it was okay. It was pretty predictable, pretty formulaic. It was another thing in the '90s where basically a lot of these movies, especially like the high school kind of films, were based on other like works of like literature and stuff like that. So I know in this list in this book coming up, and I think in a couple episodes we have 10 Things I Hate About You, which is basically based on the Shrew or Taming of the Shrew by Shakespeare. We had like basically also in this time period there's like Romeo and Juliet. The basically it was like a literal translation of that. There was another one. I think my friend was telling me that Cruel Intentions is based on some French play. We were talking about this earlier in the night. But yeah, he mentioned something about Cruel Intentions being based on some kind of French play at the time, and a lot of the high school movies in the '90s were essentially retellings of older stories like Shakespeare and stuff like that. But that was again, She's All That. I thought the movie was just okay. Like I said, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Next up, we have Cruel Intentions. I know of it, and I know the plot of it, and all that kind of stuff. I've never actually seen it. This is actually my first time watching She's All That as well. But next week we're going to be doing Cruel Intentions. I think we have 10 Things I Hate About You after that. I think that's going to be on Disney Plus, so I'm kind of waiting to watch that on Disney Plus when that premieres in. I think it's in like 5 days or so. So when that comes out, we'll be watching that on Disney Plus. I rented She's All That on Amazon. But that's going to do it for this episode. Again, next week is Cruel Intentions. That's going to do it for now. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching.